alive at South DeKalb Mall for some of the hottest name brands. But it's gonna be two Archean Pacifically. But first, you know what? I'm not even gonna tell you. Just follow me on the inside. Yes, Adidas. One of the world's most widely known fashion gear. Athletic, of course.
It all began in a wash house in the South German town of Herzogenaurach, where young Adi Dassler designed and made footwear for sport. Later, he was joined by his brother Rudolf. Together, they made plans.
Setting up a business at that time, in 1920, was a brave move indeed. I take my hat off to them.
Although their characters were quite different, until the big split came, the two brothers had got on really well together.
They also had things in common. From an early age, Adolf, who was known as Addy, and Rudolf, who was 2 years older, spent every spare minute outdoors doing sport.
There was always a certain rivalry between the two, especially at sports festivals where Adolf repeatedly tried to outdo Rudolf.
Soon became clear that Addy was better at sport than Rudolf. No matter how hard his older brother tried. Their talents were different in the workshop too. When it came to the workbench, Addy had all the skills. He'd spend days and nights developing one gym shoe after another.
Adolf was a very placid person. Someone rooted in the soil, rather unobtrusive, but when his work was involved, it really came to life. Their characters certainly were different.
As the company grew and discussions with new employees and customers became increasingly important, it became clear that while Addy was an excellent designer and craftsman inventor, Rudolf was an outstanding salesman, a born businessman.
He had the gift of the gab. When you're building up a business, nobody comes to you of their own accord. You've got to make yourself known. And that was my brother-in-law's forte. He built up the business on the basis that he would look after the commercial side while my brother attended to the technical side.
Rudolf Dassler didn't really belong in a quiet, sleepy place like Herzogenaurach. He liked to present himself as a man of the world.
He was a real figure of authority, someone not afraid to raise his voice. I always remember him as a really important person who usually smoked a pipe or a cigar. In his way, he was very authoritarian. I know that he was a highly impulsive person, someone who also had an eye for the ladies, and he was very popular with the fairer sex.
Nice, red and black, my favorite color. What's up, y'all? I'm gonna try on these Adidas outfits. And y'all sit back and check out the rest of the documentary. It's a good story.
In 1933, Adolf Hitler seized power. The Dasslers interpreted the signs of the new era in their own particular way. They reckoned it opened up a host of opportunities for them because the Nazis too were keen on sporting activity. Lots of new gym shoes were needed. Soon flags bearing the swastika could be seen all over Herzogenaurach too. Adi and Rudolf Dassler didn't intend to be left in the wings. In May 1933, only a few months after Hitler was elected, the Dassler brothers became members of the Nazi Party. Years later, they were to regret the step. But at the time, the Dasslers were still focused on building up their joint company, and on little else.
Obviously, a company like the Dassler brothers firm benefited greatly from the government backing sport received. It was one way of getting young people involved in National Socialism.
Summer 1936. For a while, new business opportunities pushed the problems into the background. Athletes from all over the world flocked to Berlin to compete in the Olympic Games. Among them, black superstar Jesse Owens. News of his arrival also reached Herzogenaurach. Adi Dassler set out to offer the track and field ace handmade running shoes. The Olympic Stadium was the perfect stage for the Dassler brothers' products. The eyes of the world were focused on Adolf Hitler, and it was hoped they'd also notice the running shoes made by a far less prominent Adolf. The shoemaker from the provinces made it into the Olympic Village, and Jesse Owens was most impressed by Adolf Dassler's new running shoes, which were fitted with spikes.
They got on well right away. That was only logical. I've often seen it with athletes who had direct contact. Since the goal's the same, there's total understanding. So Owens was given shoes straight away. Shoes that really were made to measure orthopedically for him, even in those days. And he went in them. Though he might well have run barefoot and still triumphed.
It was only later, of course, that they realized what a tremendous advantage they held. Jesse Owens had won gold medals wearing shoes they had developed. That was a huge boost, and it was also mentioned in the firm's advertising.
So, what y'all think? No, not of the outfit, about the story. The Dassler brothers, Adolf and Rosa Dassler, the ones that started the company. Hey, sit back and catch the rest of the story. I got more Adidas to try on. This stuff is nice. What? I like Puma too.
The outbreak of war knocked the Dasslers' plans firmly on the head. Both brothers were called up, but Adi was soon allowed to return to the firm. As an artisan, together with a handful of employees, he was ordered to ensure that production continued. Initially of boots, and then of poorly made bazookas. Conflict between the two brothers was pre-programmed.
Adolf and his family lived on the ground floor. The first floor belonged to Rudolf and his family, and above them lived the parents.
All under one roof. That was bound to cause problems. Disputes became more and more frequent.
When two brothers build up a family, it's fairly natural in the initial stages for them to work together. The company grows. The brothers and their sons get older. The sons marry, so the number of families increases. But having several families in one company rarely works out.
While Rudolf was being held by the Americans, his brother Adolf went in search of new business. The Americans wanted him to make baseball and basketball boots.
It meant, first of all, that the firm had work coming in, that it was able to survive in those extremely difficult days after the war, that it could obtain material. Above all, though, that it was able to acquire expertise. Prior to that, no one had any idea about American sports like baseball and football. So it was a really good time for the company.
Adolf Dassler was here. He was the younger brother, the more dynamic one. He ran everything together with his wife.
Does my girl like me and eat?
Who that on the pole? And shoot that on the pole. You can really get it.
It's funny because the story gets real interesting. fact, I'm gonna keep looking through the Pumas, the older brother, and you sit back and catch the rest of the story. It's always about greed and jealousy with family.
So who was telling the truth, Adolf or Rudolf? The Americans shelved the case. The brothers were now free and mortal enemies. It was only after 12 harrowing months that Rudolf was released from the internment camp. But where was he to go? The Dassler villa had been requisitioned by the Americans, so the other members of the family were living in the factory tower. In these cramped conditions, the sons of Rudolf and Adolf, Armin and Horst, watched their parents clash more and more fiercely. Now old scores were being settled.
It was all about money. The fight between the two families was all about money.
So when you've reached a point where, two brothers start spreading extremely malicious stories about each other in front of the authorities, I don't think you can run a business together.
The only solution was to divide up the firm. The workforce had to be told. The time to separate had come.
One day, Rudolf had us assemble and told us that they decided to go their separate ways. He said it was up to us to choose whom we wanted to work for in the future, and that we should say so quite openly. Neither brother would be offended, whatever our personal choices might be.
The breach was final. Employees had to decide to go with Addy, the quiet inventor, or Rudolf, the efficient salesman. It was a tough choice.
Dividing up the material is no problem, nor machinery. The problem was people. You can't just push them to and fro.
When the decision had to be taken, 2/3 of the workforce sided with Addy, most of them shoemakers. The rest, mainly salesmen, opted for Rudolf.
See, it's hard to choose between the two. You got Adolf Dassler, and you got Rudolf Dassler. Adolf Adidas, Rudolf Puma. I'm so confused. I've seen a lot of nice stuff in. I don't even know who to pick between the two, like when they got split. You know what? I'm gonna call my brother up and see what he thinks. Adidas or Team Puma. Hey, what's up, bro?
There was always strife between them, serious strife.
Basically, they were deadly enemies.
They went their separate ways. One brother founded Adidas, the other Puma, in the same town.
If someone worked for Puma, their son wasn't allowed to play for Adidas.
And the battle continues even today. Puma versus Adidas, or versus France. The final of the 2006 World Cup was a duel of the two team sponsors. At stake, prestige and market share.
We're represented in 56% of all games, so we're the dominant brand on the pitch.
We have to dominate this World Cup and show the world that Adidas is clearly #1 in football.
Countless people, even outside the stadium, were witness to an old duel. A brand war was being fought, a war between two brothers.
Like that, I feel good, son. There's some good Adidas. This shit about 150.